Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Taylor Comblouzier, a mining analyst at Red Cloud Securities, Inc. Today's webinar focuses on Getchell Gold Corp, a Nevada-focused junior explorer that is advancing its flagship Fondaway Canyon Gold Project, where there's currently a Phase 1 2,000-meter drill program underway. So now I'll turn it over to Mike to update you on Getchell Gold and what investors have to look forward to with this company.
Thanks, Taylor. And I also welcome everybody to the presentation today. Today I'm talking about Getchell Gold, of course, and our flagship Fondaway Canyon Gold Project in Nevada. You can see on the cover slide here, basically where I'm taking the photo from is the edge of the mineralization behind me, and we're looking out towards Carson Sinks. And as the crow flies, you're looking at about 40 kilometers to the I-80. So the access is just phenomenal to this project. One thing I want to just kind of highlight is this area here that you can see is what first brought the people to the project. Back in 1956, while people were prospecting around Carson Sinks in the Stillwater Range, they discovered tungsten. And it wasn't until 1977 where they worked themselves up the canyon and they first discovered gold. And Nevada, Nevada is impressive. It's got 23 major gold mines, and it's ranked 4th in the world for gold production compared to all other countries. There's no better jurisdiction in the world to start developing something and having the chance and the prospect for it actually to move forward. In any given year, you're looking at about 5.5 million ounces of gold produced annually in Nevada. That's extremely impressive. You're talking at today's gold price about $10 billion a year in gold production. So I can't say more good things about Nevada compared to other jurisdictions in the world. It's one of the most reliable, and it provides you with the most confidence to move your project forward. Zooming into where the project lies, from Reno to where Fondaway Canyon sits, you're looking at about less than a 2-hour drive. So really excellent access. It's, again, I can't highlight how well the resources play out in the support for the area. I'm going to talk very quickly about some of our other projects because I won't be focusing on it in today's presentation. But you're looking at Dixie Comstock, which is about 17 kilometers to the east of Fondaway Canyon. It also has a historic resource, and it's a very good complementary asset for the future. Star Point, approximately 60 kilometers to the north, is a more grassroots exploration play, but it shows the very early start similar characteristics as you see at the more advanced Fondaway Canyon project. It also has a higher copper component, so it's actually quite interesting, and we're going to be starting up our exploration at Star Point very shortly. Commenting on Fondaway Canyon, you could kind of see what the historic gold resource estimate indicates. With 400,000 ounces at a grade of 6 grams per ton in the indicated category and over 600,000 ounces per ton in the inferred. So this is quite a substantial foundation to build a project from, and not only building the project from, but also building the company from. Looking at the project itself and where the historic resource is situated, you're looking at a 3.5 kilometer trend, and the central area where the resource is focused on is the bulk of the historic exploration. The paperweight shear vein hosts 50% of the historic resource. So compared to all the other areas here, the Colorado zone and the Half Moon zone, the paperweight zone holds 50% of the historic resource, but it actually is one of the smallest footprint zones. And so that's what I'm really going to be focusing on today, is I'm going to be looking at the historic work, what we see from what the work that we've been doing and what we foresee happening here. There's a really strong kind of high-grade conduit system at Fondaway Canyon, and that's what a lot of the historic work has been focusing on. And if you look at just the paperweight vein system, it's about 300 meters long, and it's only about 10 to maybe 40 meters wide. And so a lot of the drilling has just kind of focusing on that one zone and the high-grade conduit. But what I'm going to show through the presentation here is it's a bigger story. It's a more extensive mineralizing system. The mineralization really permeates through to the host rock, and you have a very extensive lower grade halo. So the Fondaway Canyon project comes with both components. It actually comes with a really good kind of high grade core component to it, but it definitely has a really bulk tonnage potential low grade component. And so the top half of the slide, you're looking in plan view of the gold domains that have been mineralized, whereas the lower half of the slide, you're looking underground at the three-dimensional model of those gold domains. And you can see all the way from the pediment zone through to Silica Ridge and Hamburger Hill, there's a really deep-rooted east-west controlling structure. And that's sort of like the main break where the mineralization comes up within. However, if you look from the Colorado to the Pack Rat and the Paperweight Half Moon South Pit area, what really makes this project stand out from the crowd is that zone is a dilational northeast-southwest zone that has allowed the multiple phases of gold mineralization to come up through the east-west main structures, but then it branches out through this entire dilational zone. And if you're just looking at that central area, that dilational zone, that's about an 800 meter squared area with predominant mineralization permeating through it. And of course, that's where a lot of the historic work has been focusing on. If you look at the lower slide, in 3D, you can see the bulk of the mineralization for the central area. And to put it in perspective, the vertical extent of that gold domain that has just been defined to date is about over 300 meters in vertical extent. So that's a really, really wonderful sort of like knot of mineralization to kind of build a project around. Looking at it in real view, this is just focusing in now on the central area, and the next number of slides will just be focusing on the central area. You can see the development roads in the past, some of the historic pits like the main pit and the west pit, where they've mined on average about 6 gram material from the oxide zone, and the oxide zone is about 30 meters thick, and below that you have the classic kind of Carlin style mineralization sulfides beneath that, and up top the Colorado zone. And for reference, our drill right now is currently situated right up at the Colorado zone, kind of at the bottom of the arrow point there, and drilling the left hand mineralization. And I'm going to get into that in a little more detail later. Hamburger Hill is up on the right, and if you look if you compare from where the gold mineralization intersected at Hamburger Hill all the way out to the west, which is on the left-hand side of the slide, you're talking about a 3.5 kilometer long zone of known mineralization and a vertical extent of about 600 meters. So this is quite an extensive mineralizing system. And again, we've been focusing in just here on the central area. Looking in plan view from the central area, you can see kind of the historic drilling. A lot of the drilling has been focused on the Colorado and the Half Moon, as you can see. You can see there in 1989, Tenneco developed a portal and a tunnel in and a drift along the Half Moon to just kind of gauge what the underground mineralization looked like at Half Moon. And what I'm going to be focusing on here for the next handful of slides And just give me a sec here while I do some drawings. What I'm going to be looking at is I'm going to be looking at these two zones. So from the Colorado to the Packrat and the Paperweight to the South Pit, because these are two main mineralization corridors where the gold is doing things in many directions. It has an east-west expression, it has a northeast-southwest dilational expression, and also it has a shallowly dipping. And that's actually a really good thing, because if you think of it like a tree, you have the gold coming up. But what these zones do is these zones provide you with the conduit branches where the gold spreads out. And these two zones are really kind of main mineralizing zones that our current drill program is focusing on. So I'm first going to kind of do a cross section from the Colorado to the Packrat, and then I'm going to look at one from the Paperweight to the South Pit. And after that, I'm going to show you a cross section through the high-grade half-moon shear vein, just to kind of give you an idea of the difference. And this is all going to paint a picture of the difference between what we think of as a really kind of broad mineralized area with kind of really kind of heart and soul high-grade conduits that are kind of going through it. And it really has the gold sort of like penetrate and broaden itself to form a really good target that you can kind of see where the operation could go in the future. So looking from the Colorado to the Packrat, you can see the extent of the drilling up at Colorado, and it's very evident. This is a really, really nice sort of like nut of mineralization that's sitting up there. There is a vertical trend, but as you can see by the dashed line, there's a very wide, and you're talking about a 200 meter from sort of like from the vertical surface down to where the dashed line is. This is a 200 meter thick zone of mineralization that is dipping to the south about 15 or 20 degrees. And it naturally follows the slope, which again is kind of very amenable when you look at this for potential open pit development of the operation in the future. You can see some of the main intersections from one of the last drill campaigns. Canark drilled in 2017. And you can see some of the intersections from hole 3 and hole 2. Excuse me for a sec. And these are quite broad intersections, and it's very representative of what we're finding here at Fondaway Canyon, that you're going to have these very broad and nicely tightly stacked mineralization. So you're looking at close to 2.8 grams over 65 meter intersection, and 1.8 gram over 63 meters. So this is quite substantial, and it's very akin to what we see elsewhere on the property. What's of real keen interest is if you look in the middle of this long section, that one hole that graded 0.93 grams over 105.5 meters, that was drilled in 1985 by Homestake. Homestake came in and performed some due diligence because Homestake was thinking of optioning the property. And so, of course, they naturally, between the Colorado and the Packrat, they basically put a hole right smack dab in the middle to test to see if this mineralization continues. And lo and behold, they were actually quite surprised and pleased that it did. And you're looking again at close to 1 gram material over 100 meters. And so this is in perfect alignment with our geological model. Where I have the spaces written open, that's all prospective. All this area, basically all the west from where hole 1702 intersected, all that potential mineralization and evident mineralization has not been included in the historic resource. So the historic resource of 400,000 ounces in the indicated and greater than 600,000 ounces in the inferred, again, is focused just on certain 12 structures. So they were just looking at the conduits. Whereas what we're looking at is we're looking at the bigger picture and the broader mineralization that is evident at Fondaway Canyon. So For example, our first, where we're drilling right now, is we're basically kind of parked up at Colorado, and we're testing this out. And so this is doing twofold. What we need to do is a lot of the historic work, it's only in the last campaign that we might have core for. Previous campaigns were reverse circulation and such. So this drill program that we're conducting right now is doing a number of aspects to help the project out future. One, we want to understand the high grade component. We also want to understand the potential continuation of the mineralization. And so we're doing multiple things with this drill hole. We're determining the known mineralization, but at the same time, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be stepping out and extending the mineralization, and in essence, potentially building up a bigger and broader resource. And we're doing it very methodically with 6 drill holes in our current program. But you can readily see what our next drill campaign can be as we kind of extend and build more mineralization. So looking at the parallel section between Paperweight and South Pit, and again, this is on the same orientation as the last section, you can see the same geometry that's occurring here. You've got this very, very broad zone of fairly consistent mineralization, starting up at the top of the hill where Paperweight is coming through. And by the time you get underneath the main pit, you're looking at close to 300 meters of mineralization that's sitting underneath main pit. Far to the left of the slide, hole 1705, hit some decent mineralization at the bottom of the hole. And again, if you line that all up, all the way back to the Paperweight, you can see that broad envelope of mineralization that continues on down. So there appears to be very good consistency and cohesion to the body of mineralization here that people haven't really looked at or kind of exploited in the past. And it is fairly evident from ourselves looking at all the historic work and the historic modeling that we actually have something real here at Fond du Lac, something really that we can build from. So now just focusing on a different aspect, and this is the north-south section, just cutting across the Half Moon shear vein. And I called it a shear vein, I don't call it a vein, because if you look at the photo in the middle, this is underground at the drift. That's about 75 meters below surface, right on the main sort of Half Moon shear vein. And it's, again, you can see it's not a cohesive vein. But what it is, it's a cohesive zone of mineralization, of gold mineralization. And you can get up to 1 ounce material in the face here over channel samples of about 1.5 meters. So this whole face ran close to 20 grams per ton over 4 meters where the guy is situated. Looking on the left, again, you put it in perspective. It's just that face is just a little small speck on the map. You're looking at 300 meter vertical extent of that mineralization. And that vein extends right from surface, right through the drift and down. So you have this vertical, like high-grade conduit systems going through, but then you also have all the lower grade zones crossing through. So it's a really good crosshatch of mineralization, and that reduces the void spaces in between where the mineralization is, and you can build again up a really cohesive model of mineralization. So looking specifically at the underground drift at Half Moon, and this is in plan view, you can see what I'm talking about is sort of like the high-grade conduit system, the shear vein system going through there. And if you look on the far left, where it says Half Moon shear vein, that face was the face where the person had the photo taken. And over the 4.3 meters, it graded 12.4 grams. And then up to 16.7 grams over 1.5 meters. But that's not unique. Yes, the grade does vary a bit over it, again, because it's individual samples have variability to it, but the overall zone itself, the body of mineralization, is actually fairly consistent. And you have some individual channel samples over 1.8 meters grading about 24 grams per ton. So I just want to highlight again how you have the sort of like the high grade component, which is extremely important, because you could build up ounces very quickly with sort of like the high grade center to the mineralization, but you could put a mine plan around the broad disseminated zone. So now I'm moving away from the central zone because I just want to talk about something different. And I'm going to go way out, about 2 kilometers out to the west here, to the pediment zone. There were 2 holes that were drilled out in the pediment. And when I say pediment, it's basically kind of a blanket of alluvium, which is just loose sediment that's sitting on the bedrock beneath, but it covers it like a blanket. You're only looking at about, like 50 feet to 70 feet of kind of blanket sediment there, where you have the bedrock very closely underneath. And in 2002, 2 RC vertical holes were drilled out there just to kind of test the east-west mineralization as it extended out onto the pediment. Because if you look over at Southmouth, about 155,000 tons of material was mined at surface from the oxidized zone. The majority of the drilling has been shallow. They haven't really tested anything to the depth. But we're gonna look in plan or section view at what the pediment holes produced. Fairly broad intersections. 1 gram material over 18 meters, half a gram material over 36 meters. This was a surprise because there was no previous evident exploration or indication. These were 2 holes that were just drilled kind of in alignment with the mineralization. Of note, this mineralization was hosted within limestone unit. And so very, very, a mirror image to Carlin mineralization. And it's a whole new target. It's a whole new target area because the mineralization event that occurred at Fondaway was a very long-standing event over multiple phases, also multiple structural situations as well that allowed the gold to kind of permeate through and emplace itself kind of, like in the zone. So every indication that we see here is from what we've noted from the mineralization that has been defined to date. There is a really good chance or prospectivity for more. There's nothing that stops you from thinking that there's more. And we're just looking again at a window of the mineralization, and the pediment zone kind of gives you that extra view to what can potentially be lying underneath there. And so one of the drill holes that we're planning is actually to kind of just one drill hole here, because both holes were drilled by reverse circulation. We want to drill a core hole to actually, get a better characteristic of the mineralization, where we could then develop a larger follow-up drill program to really kind of follow where this mineralization is going, to vector in if there's a larger body of mineralization or higher grade mineralization, or to follow it to surface. And so that's kind of an exciting little addition to the entire play. So kind of bringing it into summary here. You can see again back to the three-dimensional gold domain model. In red, you can see where the higher grade material is located with the lower grade kind of halo around it. You can really kind of build something from that. And putting it all in perspective, looking on the right photo, that's the half moon shear vein coming through. So that's kind of the wall that's up up above the guy on the right there. That's kind of the high-grade half-moon zone. You're looking at about a 15-meter face. So below where that person is standing, it's 20 times that height below him of mineralization. So that tries to put in perspective kind of what we're dealing with here. And again, what the future can hold. So talking about our drill program, I'm actually very excited. We've been working towards this for a while. We've picked, I would have to say we've very strategically picked 6 drill holes that'll really sort of benefit the project, benefit the company, and benefit our plans for the future. We are naturally focusing on the central area with 6 of our drill holes and with 1 of our drill hole at the pediment. And so you can see here in the photos what the pediment looks like and where we're drilling. So again, we're very excited. We've completed 2 holes to date. We're looking at probably first results in about 4 or 5 weeks or so. And so that's it from my end. I want to thank everybody for attending the meeting. But please visit us at getchellgold.com at our website for further information, as well as you can see what our trading symbol here is on the CSE with the trading symbol of GTCH, and also on the OTCQB.
So we'll now start the Q&A portion of the webinar. So a reminder to everyone on the line that you can type your questions into the chat box at any time. So the first one, I'll kind of start off with the resource that's at the historic resource that's at Fondaway. That comprises about 400,000 of indicated. Great, ounces. Thank you, Mike. So we'll now start the and then 600,000 in inferred ounces of gold for a total of about 1 million ounces. So when is the company planning to do a resource calculation with a lower cutoff grade? That question came in from Ken. So maybe you could just talk to that.
Gladly.
Mike.
One thing I didn't quite touch upon is the historic resource was modeled as an underground mine. So the author highlighted just 12 distinct shear veins. For example, just like the half moon shear vein that you saw there in the paperweight. So 12 distinct vertical zones was modeled with a 3.43 gram per ton cutoff and a 1.8 meter mining width. So envisioning sort of an underground operation, what that would entail. And it didn't really take into account the body of the low-grade mineralization that is a halo around those main conduits. So we didn't want to do a resource estimate prior to this drill program because this drill program is supporting our geological model, and then once we have more confirmation on a geological model, which of course this drill hole program will provide, then we can develop a new resource. And so that's the intention subsequent to this phase 1 drill program.
To move on to our second question. So from Philip, what type of geological feature allowed the gold mineralization to come to the surface? What kind of geologic process? Is it similar to the Carlin trend?
It's very similar. It follows the exact same fluid development. The only difference is in the host rock. The host rock is an argillite versus your normal marble or limestone of the Carlin trend. The fluids are extremely similar. It's just that the host rock is a little different. So when it gets deposited, there will be some differences. The argillite is a lot more brittle. So you're going to have the combination of brittle ductile environment, which then allows that high-grade conduit system to go through. Because of the argillite and the brittleness, you get the high-grade core. But the argillite still allows the fluids to permeate through the host rock itself as well. So it's very akin to the Carlin trend. The difference would be that the gold is actually slightly more coarser within the pyrite than the standard Carlin trend, which is beneficial. And for some reason, the arsenopyrite event is separated from the gold pyrite emplacement event. And so it's nice that the arsenopyrite is isolated from the gold, which is also going to kind of benefit in the potential metallurgy down the road. There's a major intrusive about 2 to 4 kilometers to the north of the project, and we believe that is the heat engine that drove the fluids through Fondaway Canyon. It's quite.
So another question came in from Tim. What is the best guess on the strip ratio?
That's something that I can't comment on. And of course, naturally, all the regulations for my conveyance of any information such as that is quite regulated, and I can't say anything. But the geomorphology of the canyon itself, the low-lying, or sorry, I should say the low-angle slope, the north slope of the canyon itself, really provides a benefit for any potential strip ratio. Of course, once you get down to the canyon floor, the strip ratio is going to get, like larger and larger. But you're looking, in a perfect world, because of the kind of the high grade component to it, it allows you additional flexibility upon a potential mine model. The mineralization is at surface and close to surface, and then dipping parallel to the slope. So it's very amenable to sort of looking at it from an open pit perspective to start off with. Sure.
A couple kind of came in kind of related to the same topic about the history of Fondaway and how the properties have been in different ownership, and that there's been various work done. Maybe you could just talk to kind of the background and what they kind of turned up, and give a summary of the history on the properties. When did Getchell get involved?
Sure. Well, Getchell only got involved quite recently. The gold was first discovered in 1977, and over a multitude of operators and campaigns that involved surface work, surface exploration, drilling, open pit mining of the oxide zones, and underground development by Tenneco to determine what the Half Moon vein looked underground. You're talking about 40 years span of work at Fondaway focused on gold. Through the 80s, that's where the majority of the mining occurred. And again, it was solely focused on the oxide zones, because the oxide zones were the easiest ones to develop, of course, because they're near surface. And the metallurgy is that much more attractive in the oxide zones. So all the past operators were looking at kind of different things through time. And nobody ever kind of looked at the project as a whole, which kind of Getchell is looking at today. And so pulling it all together, and through all of the 40 years, you're looking at about 735 historic drill holes scattered throughout the property. However, the majority of them are kind of focused just on select areas. So the patchwork of historic exploration and development kind of allows us to pull all those pieces together and understand it as a whole. And that's how we're addressing it, moving it forward. I mean, this is sort of a substantial deposit with substantial opportunity.
Outline what is coming up next with Getchell, and kind of the upcoming catalysts, and how you plan to advance Fondaway. People are kind of eager to see an updated resource, and what does a timeline look for that, and what needs to go into that.
Understandable. We actually have grandiose plans moving forward. The current drill program is sort of like a first phase of the development of the company and the project as a whole. It's really going to provide us with a solid foundation to move forward, and the gold market we find ourselves in right now is really going to facilitate that. So we're looking at building off of the results that we see and doing things bigger and better moving forward. You can readily see, I mean, the 6 drill holes we're drilling right now is just scratching the surface. It is definitely going to be extending the mineralization, but when you're talking about potentially extending it for another 300 or 400 potential meters in any direction, you are looking at some major drill campaigns moving forward. But the benefit to that is it's going to provide the basis to put not just a resource together, but a preliminary economic assessment and a pre-feasibility study to eventually work towards a mine plan. And that's the goal of Getchell. And we're actually sitting quite comfortably right now because the wind is at our backs, and we actually have a really solid ship beneath our feet. So I think it's going to be a really good time.
Sounds good. And then I guess talking in terms of funding this year, you know, you're all funded up to carry out your program. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes. We're gonna be closing we just recently announced the financing. We're going to be actually closing it imminently. It doesn't preclude us from raising more money in the future, which is our game plan. We're looking to sort of like strengthen our market presence, strengthen the value in the company, and then we will be looking towards a more substantial raise to really take not only the company but the project to the next level. So it's going to be a very methodical, strategic approach, but it's going to be beneficial to everybody involved. Okay.
And I guess just I know at the beginning you mentioned your obviously your main focus is Fondaway, and that, you know, you're not really putting too much dedication to the other projects right now, but you did announce that you will be doing some geophysics at Star Point, correct? So maybe you can just get a brief update on that.
Yeah, Star Point's quite attractive. It's like Fondaway would be about 40 years ago. There's been a lot of scratching around. There's one small historic mom and pop mining operation and quite a handful of prospecting and mining holes. And what they've done is they've shown where the mineralization is kind of just expressed there at surface, and you are talking about some significant grades of gold and some high grades of copper as well. So it's a project that has never really been given its due, or never really been focused on. And so this is the first step. What we're going to do is we actually have drill targets. What the current geophysical survey is going to do is it's actually refining those drill targets, and we're looking to drill that project in the new year. So we're going to kind of be bringing that project up secondary to Fondaway, but it is going to be really sort of a complementary exploration play for the company.
Okay. And I guess just on that, has there ever been any modern drilling on it, or is it just kind of the targets?
Yeah, people have been focused on there were some there's strong gold at surface to the south there that a number of drill campaigns have kind of focused on, but I think those are more of a red herring. Looking at kind of the underlying potential mineralizing system to the north there, which is at Star Point and Star Point South, I think that's where the main target is. And people have been kind of looking at like what they see at surface, but we're looking at what's just underneath the surface there, and it's very similar and expected for what we see on that trend.
Sounds good. All right, so I think we're kind of approaching the 45-minute mark, so I think we'll kind of wrap it up now. So I'd like to thank Mike from Getchell Gold for taking the time to host the webinar today with Red Cloud Securities. And I'd like to thank everybody on the line for tuning in with us today. Had a few technical glitches, but made it through. So I'll just put out another reminder that our next webinar will feature Monarca Minerals, Inc. on September 30th, so that's this Wednesday at 2 p.m.